It starts quietly, almost too quietly for a world like ours. The sun hasn't yet broken the horizon, the streets are still asleep, and the only sound is the low hum of the refrigerator in your apartment. You sit there, coffee in hand, scrolling through headlines, political chaos, economic uncertainty, rising tensions overseas, social media outrage, personal tragedies broadcast in real time. It's 2025 and the world feels like it's spinning faster than it was ever meant to. Everyone seems to be on edge, ready to snap at the smallest provocation. In moments like this, you wonder, how do you keep your head when the world is losing theirs? How do you walk through the storm without letting it soak into your bones? That's when the words of a man who died almost 2,000 years ago surface in your mind. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius never knew what TikTok was. He never worried about the stock market crashing because of a viral tweet. But he knew something about chaos, and more importantly, he knew how to stand tall in it. The Stoic mindset isn't about pretending the chaos doesn't exist. It's about becoming the kind of man who can face it without flinching. This philosophy, tested in the heat of Roman politics, war, exile, and betrayal, wasn't written for monks on a mountain. It was written for men in the marketplace, the battlefield, the Senate. It was forged for those who had to lead, protect, and endure when life refused to play fair. And in 2025, we need it more than ever. Because while the threats are different, your battlefield might be an office, your enemies might be hidden behind corporate email signatures, your war might be for your mental health. The principles remain the same. The question is, will you be the man the storm can't break? The thing about storms is they don't announce themselves politely. They come fast, they come loud, and they come to see what you're made of. So ask yourself, when the wind starts to howl, are you the tree that bends but doesn't break, or the one that snaps under pressure? You see, chaos isn't just out there, it's in the conversations that turn into arguments over nothing. It's in the way your heart races when you check your bank account and see the unexpected expense. It's in that gnawing anxiety when your boss says, "We need to talk," or when your partner's tone changes over dinner. It's in the dread of opening your email in the morning. Modern men are taught to hustle, grind, chase success, but what they're not taught is how to stay calm when the ground shakes beneath them. We've built a culture of reaction, of emotional whiplash, where every news headline, every opinion online, every bit of bad luck is treated like the end of the world. And when you live like that, you give away the one thing the Stoics guarded above all else: your control over yourself. Epictetus, a former slave turned philosopher, once told his students, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." He didn't mean that in some Hallmark card way. He meant it as a survival strategy. In ancient Rome, one bad reaction could cost you your life. Today, it can cost you your job, your relationships, your sanity. That's the heart of the Stoic mindset for facing chaos. Slow down, think clearly, choose your response. But in a world addicted to speed and instant gratification, that feels almost rebellious. Imagine you're in a meeting and someone tries to undermine you publicly. The old you might snap back, defend your pride, maybe even raise your voice. The Stoic you, he pauses. He lets the silence do the talking. He understands that every second he doesn't react emotionally is a second he stays in control. And control is power. Here's the paradox. You can't control the chaos, but you can control the captain at the wheel. The storm is loud, but your mind can be quiet. And in that quiet, you'll find your way through. Think about the last time you lost your temper. Maybe it was a traffic jam when you were already late. Maybe it was your kid ignoring you for the third time. Maybe it was your partner saying something that cut deeper than it should have. In that moment, the chaos wasn't just outside, it was inside. Your pulse spiked, your chest tightened, and your thoughts narrowed to a single point of frustration. That's the dangerous part. Chaos doesn't win when it's in the world, it wins when it's in you. A Stoic understands this. He knows that external storms are inevitable, but internal storms are optional. You can't stop the rain from falling, but you can decide whether you'll stand in it with an umbrella or let yourself drown. And the way you hold that umbrella is through mental discipline, through training your mind before the chaos arrives, so that when it does, you already know how to stand your ground. Marcus Aurelius woke up each morning reminding himself, "Today I will meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." He didn't say this to make himself bitter. He said it so that when these things happened, they wouldn't surprise him. You can do the same. Imagine starting your day expecting challenges, not as a pessimist, but as a realist. That way, when someone cuts you off in traffic or drops a problem in your lap at work, you're not thrown off balance. You're ready. Preparation is a kind of quiet armor. It doesn't make you invincible, but it makes you harder to shake. It's the difference between a man caught in the rain without warning and a man who saw the clouds gathering hours before. One is scrambling, soaked, and shivering. The other, he's calmly unfolding his umbrella. The truth is, you can't choose whether the waves will come, but you can choose whether you've learned how to swim. And in a world that's constantly trying to pull you under, that skill might be the difference between sinking and surviving. We live in an age where chaos is often man-made. Politicians stir it up for votes. Media companies amplify it for clicks. Social platforms feed it to keep you scrolling. The noise never stops. If you don't consciously protect your mind, it will be hijacked. You'll find yourself emotionally exhausted by things that have nothing to do with your actual life. You'll carry the weight of the world without realizing you were never meant to. This is why the Stoic mindset matters so much now. It teaches you to draw a clear line between what's yours to carry and what isn't. Your coworker's mood, not yours. The economy's every fluctuation, not yours. The stranger's comment on your post, not yours. What is yours? Your reasoned judgment, your choices, your actions, that's it. And if you focus only on those, you'll discover something almost miraculous. You can walk through a world on fire and still feel the cool air of your own composure. But let's be clear, this doesn't happen by accident. No one wakes up one day naturally unshakable. It's a practice. It's saying no to gossip because it muddies your mind. It's refusing to doom scroll before bed because you want to protect your sleep. It's catching yourself mid-frustration and saying, wait, does this really deserve my energy? These moments are small, but together they become the foundation of a mind that chaos can't conquer. If you want to test a man's strength, don't look at how much weight he can lift. Look at how much provocation he can endure without breaking. That's the kind of strength that doesn't fade when the lights go out. There's a strange kind of power in being the calmest man in the room. Not the loudest, not the one with the sharpest comebacks. The calmest. It disarms people. In a heated argument, the one who keeps his voice steady controls the pace. In a crisis, the one who doesn't panic becomes the anchor everyone else ties their rope to. That's why the Stoics valued composure. It's not just a moral virtue, it's a tactical advantage. Imagine you're at work and a major project falls apart. Your team is scrambling, your boss is looking for someone to blame, and the air is thick with tension. In most rooms, this would trigger panic. Voices rise, tempers flare, mistakes multiply. But in a Stoic's mind, this is simply a moment to breathe, assess, and act deliberately. He doesn't join the emotional stampede. He steps aside, watching it pass. And from that vantage point, he sees solutions others miss. That's the kind of man people remember, not because he shouted the loudest, but because he stood unshaken when the ground shook. That memory lingers. Colleagues will think, when things went wrong, he stayed steady. And in a chaotic world, that steadiness is magnetic. People trust it even if they can't explain why. This is where modern men often lose their edge. They think confidence comes from dominating others or proving themselves constantly. But real confidence, the kind that survives setbacks, comes from mastering yourself first. You can't control what's happening around you, but you can control whether it drags you into reaction mode. And when you choose not to be dragged, you win a battle most men don't even know they're fighting. Picture a lighthouse. The waves crash, the wind roars, the sky darkens, but the light doesn't waver. That's the image you need to carry in your mind. Because the storm is not a test of your noise, it's a test of your steadiness. Of course, living this way requires letting go of a dangerous addiction, the need for everything to be okay before you can be okay. Most men wait for the world to settle before they settle themselves. They tell themselves, once I make more money, I'll feel secure. Once I'm in a relationship, I'll be at peace. Once people respect me, I'll feel confident. But the Stoics knew life never gives you that perfect calm. There's always another storm coming. Waiting for calm before you calm yourself is like waiting for the sea to go flat before you learn to sail. The truth is, the best time to train for chaos is when you're not in it. Build the habits now. Start your day with stillness before the world touches you. Limit the noise you invite into your mind. Notice when your emotions rise and give yourself the space to choose your next move instead of letting it choose you. These are not small adjustments. They are acts of rebellion in a culture that wants you reactive, distracted, and exhausted. Every man says he wants peace, but few are willing to train for it. The question is, are you? Chaos will always try to convince you that it's urgent, that you have to react now, that you have to match its speed, its heat, its noise. But the Stoic learns early that urgency is often an illusion, a trap designed to pull you into mistakes. Think about the last time you rushed to reply to a text in anger, or fired off an email without pausing to read it twice. How often did that solve the problem, and how often did it make things worse? In 2025, urgency is weaponized. Notifications light up your phone every minute, each one pretending to be life or death. Social media thrives on hot takes. The news cycle spins faster than you can catch your breath. If you're not careful, you'll be living in a constant state of low-grade panic without realizing it. The Stoic mindset cuts through that. It says, slow down. Let the dust settle before you move. Wait until your mind is steady before you choose your next step. Seneca, who navigated the deadly politics of Nero's Rome, wrote, "There is nothing so wretched or foolish as to anticipate misfortunes." He wasn't naive. He knew misfortunes would come, but he refused to live twice, once in fear of the thing and once in the thing itself. That's the trap urgency sets. It makes you live your worst moments over and over before they've even arrived. You can train yourself out of this. The next time something shocks you, an accusation, a crisis, a sudden change, don't respond right away. Buy yourself an hour. If you can, buy yourself a day. The moment between stimulus and response is your kingdom, and you're the king. No one can take that from you unless you hand it over willingly. Think of chaos like a poker player bluffing across the table. It's trying to force you into a bad move, to push you to fold or overplay your hand. But if you keep your face calm, your breathing steady, you'll see the bluff for what it is. Stillness isn't the same as inaction. A Stoic doesn't just stand there while life happens to him. He acts, but from a place of clarity instead of compulsion. If a building is on fire, you don't meditate on the flames. You move. But most of the fires we deal with aren't real. They're emotional flare-ups, misunderstandings, or imagined disasters. You can't treat every spark like it's going to burn the whole city down. Modern masculinity is at a crossroads. On one side, you have the culture that tells men to always be on, respond instantly, grind endlessly, prove yourself constantly. On the other, you have the ancient wisdom that says true strength is in restraint, in knowing when not to swing, in knowing when to walk away. Most men think the loudest warrior wins the battle, but the battlefield of life often belongs to the man who holds his sword low, who waits, who picks his moment. Ask yourself, when chaos knocks at your door, are you the man who answers in a panic or the one who lets it knock until it tires itself out? There's a quiet confidence in the man who doesn't rush to prove himself. In a room full of people trying to out-talk each other, he listens. While others scramble to grab credit or avoid blame, he's focused on finding the truth of the matter. This isn't passivity, it's strategic patience. And in a chaotic world, patience is often the sharpest weapon you can carry. Picture two men caught in a sudden downpour. The first curses the sky, runs through the rain, soaked and shivering, convinced the weather is personally against him. The second, he calmly pulls up his hood, adjusts his stride, and keeps moving. Same storm, different response. The first man loses his energy to anger. The second preserves it for the road ahead. The difference isn't luck, it's mindset. The Stoic understands that his energy is his most valuable currency. Every time you react without thought, you spend it on things that don't pay you back. Every time you get pulled into gossip, outrage, or petty conflict, you're making a bad investment. Over weeks, months, years, that drain leaves men empty, bitter, and exhausted. But if you guard your energy, spending it only where it matters, you build a kind of wealth that no market crash can touch. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." It sounds morbid until you understand its power. If you truly grasp that your time is limited, you stop wasting it on the noise. You choose your battles carefully. You say no more often. You stop chasing every argument just to prove you're right. You realize that being right is worthless if it costs you your peace. Here's the irony. Chaos doesn't always come to break you. Sometimes it comes to show you what you've been holding onto that you never needed in the first place. The man who faces chaos with a Stoic mindset doesn't just survive, he transforms. Every challenge becomes a sharpening stone. Every betrayal teaches him where to place his trust. Every loss teaches him what's truly his and what never was. This isn't romanticizing hardship. It's recognizing that life will hand you pain regardless, so you might as well use it to become unshakable. In the modern world, this is rare. Many men collapse under even mild discomfort because they've never been taught to endure it. They escape into distraction, video games, endless scrolling, substances, anything to avoid sitting with the discomfort long enough to learn from it. The Stoic rejects that escape. He sits with the discomfort until it speaks, and when it does, he listens. Ask yourself, are you building a life that can only function when the skies are clear, or one that can sail in any weather? Chaos has a way of stripping things down to the bone. When the noise falls away, when the plans you clung to crumble, you see what's left. And often, it's less than you imagined. That's not always a tragedy. Sometimes it's the beginning, because in that bare, unadorned space, you discover which parts of yourself were real strength and which were just props you leaned on. In 2025, the chaos isn't only global, it's deeply personal. Men are losing jobs they thought were secure, relationships they thought were unshakable, identities they thought were permanent. And when those things fall, the temptation is to rebuild exactly what was there before. But the Stoic asks a different question. Was that structure ever worth keeping? Marcus Aurelius would remind himself that even Rome, the empire he ruled, was temporary. If the greatest power in the world could fall, why would he believe his own life was immune to change? This isn't about detachment in the cold, uncaring sense. It's about refusing to chain your peace to things you can't keep. The Stoic mindset trains you to invest your identity in virtues, not in outcomes. You can lose your wealth and still have integrity. You can lose your position and still have courage. You can lose almost everything the world calls success and still walk through life with dignity. Imagine you're holding a glass of water in a shaking hand. The more you grip it, the more the water spills. But if you steady your hand, not by clenching harder, but by calming yourself, the water stays in place. That's what control over your mind feels like. We live in a culture that teaches men to define themselves by what they have: status, possessions, networks. But if you build your sense of self on those things, you've given the keys to your happiness to forces you can't control. The Stoics knew better. Epictetus owned almost nothing, yet his words still guide people 2 millennia later. Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in Rome, yet he trained himself to be ready to lose it all without fear. It wasn't poverty or riches that made them strong. It was the ability to remain the same man in either state. And here's the truth. In chaotic times, that stability is more valuable than anything money can buy. A man who stays calm when his world changes is a man others will follow, trust, and remember. That's not an accident. It's the result of daily training, of choosing the hard path of self-mastery over the easy path of emotional surrender. When the storm comes, some men look for shelter. The Stoic becomes the shelter. The shelter you become isn't made of stone or steel. It's made of presence. When the people around you panic, they look to you, not because you have all the answers, but because you're not swept away by the same fear. You're grounded. You listen. You think before you move. That kind of presence is magnetic in a chaotic world, and it's a power that can't be faked for long. In the corporate boardroom, it's the man who can remain calm when the numbers plummet who often finds the solution others miss. In the family, it's the father who doesn't meet his child's tantrum with anger, but with steady patience, who teaches more than any lecture could. On the battlefield, whether literal or the daily fight of modern life, it's the soldier who breathes slow under fire, who makes decisions that save lives. This is the Stoic advantage. When others lose their minds, you keep yours. But it doesn't come by accident. The Stoics trained for this like athletes. Marcus Aurelius started every day imagining the challenges he would face. The rude man, the liar, the selfish partner, the frustrating delays. Not so he could be bitter, but so he would not be surprised. This practice, called premeditatio malorum, is like mental armor. When the blow comes, it still hurts, but it doesn't knock you off your feet. Think about how different your life could feel if you expected difficulty instead of resenting it. Most men waste half their strength wishing the world was easier. The Stoic spends none. He knows the world will be as it is, harsh, unpredictable, sometimes unfair, and he meets it on those terms. He doesn't take it personally because chaos is not a vendetta. It's just the nature of things. It's like training to swim in rough seas instead of hoping for calm water. If the storm hits and you've only ever practiced on glassy lakes, you'll drown. But if you've faced the waves before, you'll cut through them. In 2025, training for life's rough seas means more than physical resilience. It's mental conditioning. It's catching yourself before you complain. It's pausing before you speak words you can't take back. It's refusing to get dragged into every fight that calls your name. This isn't weakness, it's mastery. Any fool can swing a sword. It takes strength to keep it sheathed until the right moment. And here's the paradox. The more you practice restraint, the more powerful you become. You start to notice that you're no longer reacting to everything around you. You choose your responses. You choose your focus. You stop living as if you're being pulled by invisible strings and start living as if your hands are on the wheel. When chaos realizes it can't control you, it moves on to easier prey. And here's the thing, once chaos moves past you, you begin to see it differently. It's no longer this monster looming over your life. It becomes a test you've already studied for. You recognize its patterns, its tricks, its favorite times to strike. You stop asking, why me? And start thinking, all right, here you are again. Let's see what you've got this time. That shift alone changes everything. Because most men crumble not from the size of the storm, but from the shock of it. They thought life would go as planned. They thought if they worked hard enough, loved deeply enough, played fair enough, they'd be spared the worst. And when that belief shatters, they take the hit straight to the soul. The Stoic never builds his peace on that illusion. He knows that the path of virtue doesn't promise safety, it promises strength. This mindset frees you from bitterness. When betrayal comes, you're not surprised. When the market dips, you're not shattered. When people fail to keep their word, you don't take it as a personal insult. You respond, you adapt, and you keep moving. Not because you're numb, but because you understand that life has always been this way. The world has never been tamed. It only wears a thin coat of order that peels away with the first hard rain. Imagine you're walking through a forest and the trail suddenly vanishes. The unprepared man freezes, panics, and waits for someone to guide him back. The Stoic? He studies the trees, listens for the river, watches the sun's position, and makes a new path. In 2025, that ability to make your own path is survival. The institutions men once leaned on, stable jobs, lifelong communities, even shared cultural values, are shifting under our feet. You can't rely on the trail being marked anymore. That's not a tragedy. It's an invitation to stop outsourcing your compass and start carrying one inside you. You do that by practicing daily self-governance. You catch your mind when it drifts into complaint and pull it back to action. You choose your values deliberately, not because they're trending, but because they make you proud to stand by them, even when it's unpopular. You learn to say no to the distractions that dilute your focus and the temptations that erode your discipline. This is how a man becomes unshakable, not by avoiding hardship, but by mastering himself in its midst. And once you've built that inner compass, something remarkable happens. You stop fearing the unknown. Where most see uncertainty as a threat, you begin to see it as raw clay, waiting for your hands to shape it. That's not arrogance, it's responsibility. The Stoics didn't pretend they could control every outcome, but they believed fully in their ability to control their effort, their character, and their choices. That is the foundation of all real power. Think of it like a ship's captain in a storm. The captain doesn't curse the wind or demand the sea calm down. He adjusts the sails, studies the waves, and uses every bit of skill he has to keep the vessel on course. The storm doesn't respect his complaints, but it will respond to his mastery. Your life works the same way. The chaos won't vanish because you wish it to, but it will bend to the discipline you bring to it. In practical terms, that means taking ownership in every sphere of your life. If your finances are in disarray, you face the numbers instead of avoiding them. If your health is slipping, you train your body instead of excusing its decline. If your relationships are fractured, you examine your part in the cracks before blaming others. The Stoic understands that avoidance is a slow poison. Facing the truth is sometimes painful, but it's the only medicine that works. Picture a man holding a torch in a dark cave. The shadows dance and twist, making the cave seem alive with monsters. But as he steps forward, the light reveals nothing more than walls and stone. The fear was real, the threat was not. This is why the Stoic mindset is a weapon in 2025. It cuts through the illusions that paralyze other men. It stops you from wasting energy on what's outside your reach and channels it toward the actions that actually change your life. When you stop flailing at the wind, you can finally steer. And here's the part most people miss. The calm, deliberate man is not passive. He's not sitting in meditation while the world burns. He's moving, deciding, building, but without the panic that blinds others. That's why when the smoke clears, he's the one still standing, often with more than he started with. The chaos didn't skip him, it just couldn't shake him. The storm will always come, but for the Stoic, it's just another wind to harness. And here's a truth most men never realize until it's too late. Chaos is not the enemy, it's the proving ground. Without it, there's nothing to test your steel, nothing to show you what you're made of. Comfort might feel like safety, but it dulls the edge of your spirit. The Stoics understood this deeply. They saw every hardship as a forge, and themselves as the blade. The fire is uncomfortable, yes, but without it, you're just a lump of metal with potential that never becomes strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, never meant for anyone else to read, that the obstacle becomes the way. It wasn't just a clever phrase, it was a lifeline. When something blocked his plans, he didn't waste time wishing it away. He asked, how can I move through this? What can this teach me? And every time the answer was found in action, not complaint. Imagine applying that to your own life. The job loss that forces you to develop skills you've been avoiding. The breakup that pushes you to confront the parts of yourself you've ignored. The injury that teaches you patience and humility. It's like the gym. If you never increase the weight, your muscles never grow. Chaos is life adding plates to the bar. You can groan about it or you can lift. In 2025, the plates are heavier than they've been in decades. economic instability, constant information overload, social division, all of it adds weight. You don't get to choose whether it's heavy. You only choose whether you get stronger or weaker under it. The Stoic chooses strength. He chooses to see each burden as training for the next one. And with every repetition, he finds that the weight that once crushed him is now barely enough to break a sweat. And here's the unexpected gift. The stronger you get, the more you can carry, not just for yourself, but for others. You become a source of stability in your family, your community, your workplace. When others falter, you can bear some of their load without resentment because you've built the capacity to handle it. That's when Stoicism stops being just a personal philosophy and starts becoming a public service. When the world is filled with trembling hands, the steady hand becomes priceless. And so we come to the end, but really it's only the beginning. The Stoic mindset isn't something you read about, nod along to, and then forget. It's not a motivational sugar rush. It's a discipline, a practice, a way of standing in the storm without letting the storm inside you. In 2025, the chaos won't pause to let you catch your breath. It won't shrink because you ask politely, but you will be ready, not because life has become easier, but because you have become harder to break. Imagine yourself 5 years from now, looking back on the man you were today. Will you see someone who waited for conditions to improve before he acted? Or will you see someone who moved forward regardless, who carried himself with dignity even when the ground shook beneath him, who became a quiet pillar of strength in a world that lost its balance? That choice is made right here, in the small daily moments where you decide to master yourself instead of the noise. The wind will always howl, the waves will always rise, but the captain who knows his course does not fear the sea. Take this with you. You are not your circumstances. You are not the chaos around you. You are the one who decides what it means, the one who shapes your response, the one who chooses the direction of your ship. The Stoic philosophy doesn't promise a calmer ocean, but it promises you will become the kind of man who can cross it. And in times like these, that's worth more than gold. So tomorrow, when you wake and the world is still loud, still uncertain, still throwing obstacles in your way, remember that the obstacle is the way. Step into it. Own your response. And let the storm remind you not of your fragility, but of your strength. Because in the end, the Stoic doesn't wait for peace. He carries it with him, always.